Welcome to the Politicrat. I am Omar Moore. It is Sunday, July the 12th, 2020. On this episode, 12 years old. 12 years old. I'll explain next. Welcome back. I just think that this is just... I'm going to start like this. When I heard about this incident early this morning, about racist messages being sent to a Premier League footballer in England, and realized how we are so far away, and I knew this before, come on. It just reinforces that we are so far away from any notion of a decent society and a decent world. So many people in the world have these racist behaviors and racist thoughts and racist actions. So many people. And a lot of this is also a product of the society, a product of the upbringing of people, and the very clear look at the world that we are ensconced in, a very racist world with racist policies, with oppression that continues against black people and brown people and other people of color, and a continuing lack of urgency to change these situations, not just with politicians, but with a system that is oppressive and designed to be that way. Then you find out that this is a 12-year-old boy who sent these messages, these racist messages, to a English footballer. He's from the Ivory Coast, Wilfried Zaha, the footballer, but he is based in England and has been in England for many years now. I believe he's an English citizen as well. But that's irrelevant whether he's an English citizen or not, whether he's English or not. As a black man playing in the Premier League, which is the top league in England in English football, or in any league, anywhere in the world, no black person, black man or woman or child, should have to be receiving these kinds of messages of hate, death threats. Nobody should. And Wilfried Zaha got up this morning and woke up to that in his Instagram. Or his Twitter page, whichever. And he shared them on Instagram and on Twitter, especially on Twitter. That's where I saw them. And I think we should all, by the way, before even going any further with this, give some support to Wilfried Zaha. Wilfried Zaha deserves our support. Racist threats, death threats. 12 years old. A 12-year-old boy sending these messages. That's who's been arrested by the West Midlands police, by the way. But I want to just say that we should support Wilfried Zaha, and he is on Twitter, and he deserves our support. And his Twitter handle is WIL, F as in Frank, R as in Rich, IED, Z-A-H-A. Wilfried Zaha. As soon as I saw these racist messages, I instantly followed him because I think the very least we can do is follow him, give him our support, let him know that we stand with him, let him know that we care about him. It's just horrible. I only read 2 of these messages. I could not read all of them because one of them, quite frankly, I think they're all disgusting. And I just think this is really evil stuff. It's sickening and it's evil. And it must be punished. It must be punished. This 12-year-old boy was arrested by West Midlands Police. And Crystal Palace, the team that Wilfried Zaha plays for in the Premier League, were playing today at Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa are a team that are in dire need of wins to stay in the Premier League. And they happened to beat Crystal Palace today 2-0. Now, I don't know how much these racist threats and grotesque images affected Wilfried Zaha, but Crystal Palace were not on their game today. For the most part, they were not. And I don't know how much, how little, or whatever this had to do with how they performed. Zaha was not at his best. I don't know if that also factored in, again, to the way he played. I think that this is so disgusting that somebody would stoop to any kind of level because they don't want to see their football club get relegated, so they send racist messages. I think this is so evil, and this represents what people like this have in their hearts. And I am assuming that this guy is a white guy, a white 12-year-old boy. I don't understand how it could be anybody else but someone white doing this. Those messages are disgusting, and if you want to take a look at them, you can go to Wilfried Zaha's Twitter page, as I've told you, at WIL, F as in Frank, RIEDZAHA. If you want to look at those images, feel free. I've actually retweeted them myself, so you can go to the Popcorn REEL if you choose on this Sunday, July the 12th, 2020. This is reprehensible. 12 years old. Now, there's no way that 12-year-old boy did not have a racist background with his family. There's no way. You can't tell me that a boy who is 12 years old has parents who did not teach him racism and hatred. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me that he got this all from his friends. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me that he got this all from the society that he lives in. Because although it's very true that the governing party in the UK, the Conservatives in England, have a long history of this, and the Labour Party is not a whole heck of a lot better either. There's a lot of racism to go around in their party as well, by the way. The kind of anti-Jewish and the anti-black sentiments of some people in the Labour Party. I mean, we saw this recently with Rebecca Long Bailey. She was fired from the cabinet. She should have been fired from, quite frankly, her post as an MP. She was fired from the shadow cabinet. Let me be clearer about that, because Labour are not the party in power, it's the Conservatives. So there's plenty of this to go around. We've had plenty of conservatives over the years saying racist things and not getting the severe punishment that they should be getting. They get a slap on the wrist. Really. They don't get fired. They don't get stood down. They don't. But you cannot tell me that this 12-year-old boy got all of this from those other places. Whether it's government, whether it's society, whether it's the programs on television. And yes, there's a fair share of those, and they happen. Look at a program like Little Britain, no longer really on the air in the UK, where you had white performers in blackface. This is in 2002, 2003, 2004. And thereabouts, if not more recently than that. And you've since had those performers apologize. People like Matt Lucas, who found himself in the film Bridesmaids. Didn't stop him from getting a role in Hollywood with Bridesmaids. You remember that movie. Matt Lucas is from the UK, from England. He has since apologized for Little Britain. David Walliams, who was in that series as well, he hasn't seemed to learn his lesson, though, because he continues to say racist things. He tweeted some just this past week. David Walliams is a name like that, last name like that. Why isn't his name David Williams? Doesn't that just make sense? I can do better. I can do better than that. But David Walliams is a racist. End of story. And I look at all of this, and I look, again, back to this 12-year-old boy from Solihull, apparently, according to the West Midlands Police. West Midlands Police, they are in that jurisdiction where Aston is, and that's where, that's the area in which Aston Villa, the football club, play. And obviously, this 12-year-old boy from Solihull was most likely an Aston Villa supporter, a fan of the club. And he sent this vile, racist material to Wilfried Zaha. My question is, and apparently Aston Villa have pledged to ban anybody who does this for life. Do you think this 12-year-old has season tickets? Or do you think it's his parents who have those season tickets, if they have them at all? Because maybe this person goes to football matches at Aston Villa or at any ground where Aston Villa's playing. And is it possible that it's not just this 12-year-old boy in isolation? What about his parents? What about his mother? What about his father? What about them? I find it hard to believe that this 12-year-old boy did this all by himself. I mean, you look at those images that Wilfried Zaha tweeted earlier today. Did this 12-year-old boy know about the KKK? Did he? I'm not discounting that children can't absorb a heck of a lot of things, because they certainly do. Even before the age of 12, even before the age of 5. Some of the most critical times, it is often said, in a child's development is between the ages of 0 and 3 years old. So what you feed your child, what you feed any child in those tender years from 0 to 3, or, those tender years between 4 and 7, precious years as well. What you feed that child you are implanting some seeds that can be either hopeful or destructive. And I just can't imagine that in this case, a 12-year-old boy has done this by himself. Maybe he has. Maybe he hasn't. Where is, by the way, the parental responsibility? 12-year-old getting access to images on the internet, like the ones that he sent. Where's the responsibility of social media companies? I mean, we should look at that too. Instagram is owned by you-know-who from Facebook. I'm not even going to mention his name because I think he's contributed a great deal to this. Twitter needs to be better, and they are showing some signs of improvement, but not nearly enough. But what about this 12-year-old boy's parents? I think they have a lot to answer for. Welcome back. Aston Villa, the football club in the Premier League in England who are fighting for survival in that Premier League, earlier today tweeted the following regarding these racist messages. We deplore the disgusting racist messages sent to Wilfried Zaha. We condemn all forms of racial discrimination and stand with Crystal Palace Football Club. We are working with the police in investigating this extremely serious matter, and when the culprit is identified, AVFC will issue a lifetime ban. And in that same tweet, they had retweeted Crystal Palace's message as well. And Crystal Palace had tweeted out the following: "This is an absolute disgrace and should not be happening. We stand with you, Wilf, and anyone else who has to suffer such horrific abuse." And they included the tweet from Wilfried Zaha as well. This is truly unacceptable behavior, and there is, before every Premier League game now, the knee taken before the game in salute of and in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. It has also been replicated in several other sports, in Formula One racing, in NASCAR. Lewis Hamilton, today, also from England, he ended up winning his Formula One championship race. And as a result, he also he celebrated there and raised his fist in solidarity. It's just been, there's a reason why this is all happening. There's a reason why. There's a reason why. Why do you think why do you think people are saying Black Lives Matter? Why do you think that that's happening? And you've got idiots flying banners over stadiums, over stadia, with White Lives Matter Burnley on it. There are racists all over the world. And we have to drive them out or drive them underground. And because of, on top of other things, because of authoritarian right-wing and racist governments, be they here in the United States, be they in Brazil, where there is a caste system in place, be they in India, where there is a caste system in place, be they in Hungary, be they in Russia, be they in Saudi Arabia, be they in, you name the country, the Philippines, because you have a right-wing government in the UK, quite frankly. You saw what happened in the UK about a month ago, just over a month ago. You had those racist white men disrupting people's picnics, saying racist things, fighting with the police. Oh, don't take down those statues. No one was there to take anything down. You're not there to guard statues. Winston Churchill was boarded up. So what are you there for? You're there to start a fight, to be aggressive, to take out your aggression and your pathetic little minds with your tiny hands and your insecurity and your lack of manhood. Why do you feel the need to be aggressive and angry when the group to which you belong have enjoyed centuries-long privilege and have enjoyed oppression of others? What are you so angry about? You have been given every break under the sun. So why would you need to be violent with anybody? You're certainly not helping black people and brown people. You're certainly not doing that. So what are you angry and upset about? What are you upset about? Even in a system that benefits you, you still fail. That's a stunning and staggering indictment on you. A staggering indictment of you. For if you still fail in a system that benefits you while suppressing black people and brown people, then you're the real failure. The Premier League came out with its statement as well on Twitter and on its website. And their tweet read as follows: "This behavior is completely unacceptable, and the Premier League stands alongside Wilfried Zaha in opposing this and discrimination in any form. There is no room for racism anywhere." Another tweet from the Premier League, and they can be found at Premier League on Twitter, says as follows: "We will continue to support players, managers, coaches, and their family members who receive serious discriminatory online abuse. Through our dedicated reporting system, we can take immediate action on cases like this. More about our reporting system." And then there's a link to that particular reporting system. Where are the parents? Where is the parental responsibility? Where are the parental locks? Does this kid have a phone? Where are the locks on that? How are you parenting? And are you teaching this 12-year-old boy hate? He surely has parents, unless he's orphaned. And then, if that's the case, who's teaching him this hatred? It's not all society. It's not all his friends. His parents have a role. Maybe his father did this, and who knows? Who knows? This is a 12-year-old mind. A 12-year-old white mind. 12 years old. Tamir Rice was 12 years old. Do you know what happened to 12-year-old Tamir Rice here in the United States? Tamir Rice, around 2014 or so, a young, black, 12-year-old boy, was gunned down, murdered by police, who shot him to death within a second and a half of seeing him. Tamir Rice was waving a toy gun around, or he actually had a toy gun in his hand. I think it was a water gun. And a white police officer, straight up to him in a car, barely got out of the car, he shot him from the car dead. A second and a half. 12-year-old boy, 12. So you've got 12-year-old black boys and 7-year-old black girls being murdered by the police. Murdered by the police. And you've got 12-year-old white boys sending racist text messages or racist tweets or racist Instagram posts to Wilfried Zaha. This is disgusting. And this is the state of the world that we live in, that you live in, that I live in. "12 years old. But this didn't happen just today in 2020. This has been going on for centuries. One of my favorite documentaries ever is I Am Not Your Negro. And if you have been any kind of regular listener to this podcast, you will know that I've spoken about I Am Not Your Negro before. This podcast, several times I've spoken about that film. Most recently, just over a week ago now. I urge you to watch that documentary. It is on Netflix. It is available on Netflix. It's available on YouTube. You have to pay for it on YouTube. But then again, if you're a subscriber of Netflix, you have to pay for it too. Be that neither here nor there, but I urge you to watch it. I actually have done an audio commentary on the entire film, which you can also find on YouTube, by the way. I will actually put a link to that in the liner notes of this episode. But you really should watch that documentary. Very important, with James Baldwin, voiced by Samuel L. Jackson. There's archival footage in it of James Baldwin. James Baldwin, by the way, will be having a birthday coming up next month, and you can bet that there will be another episode specifically on James Baldwin coming up in the month of August. So if you are a listener to this podcast, or if you're someone who is a fan of James Baldwin, interested in James Baldwin and what he had to say in his life before he passed away, and the great books that he has left us with, and the activism that he exemplified and that he was all about, please be on the lookout for that episode next month, and I'll be talking a bit more about that as we get closer to August. But you've got to, in the meantime, watch this documentary. It's called I Am Not Your Negro. It was recently shown here in the US on PBS through the Independent Lens documentary series. And Independent Lens and PBS are both on Twitter. You can find both of them. But it was recently shown. This is a really important documentary. And I certainly will be doing some more in conjunction with that documentary over the next little while. So the point of me saying this, though, is to just point out that in that documentary, there are these young white faces. Dorothy Counts was a young black female who I think was maybe 12 or 13 or 14, maybe less than that. And she was going to school. This is during the time that Eisenhower had ordered the National Guard into Mississippi and these other places to enforce the law, to enforce Brown versus Board of Education, which allowed for black people to go to schools with white people. And you just look at the archival footage, and you don't even have to wait to watch the documentary to realize this. You don't have to wait to watch Raoul Peck's I Am Not Your Negro to see this. You can go and look it up online. The video of this footage of these young white kids. I mean, these kids, you're looking at them, they're only 8, 10, 12, 14 years old. And they are up in her face. They're spitting. They're jeering her. And look at these people. Look at them. Hatred. Evil. What's wrong with them? Well, there's lots wrong with them, obviously. That's the best you can do, is be hateful. That is the best you have. That is the best of yourself. To be racist, that's the best of you. That's in the 1950s I'm talking about. In the 1960s. And then in Boston. You're busing black kids into Boston at a school there, and you've got these white kids again and white adults. We won't go to school with them. I mean, there's signs. Even in the documentary you see this. Signs. You got white boys and girls, white boys with signs, proudly holding them up for the camera, saying, we won't go to school with Negroes. You're wearing your racism on your sleeve. Proudly. Proudly. That's what you are. That's the best of you. You're a racist. And you don't care. You love it, don't you? This didn't happen just with Amy Cooper. This didn't just begin with her. I mean, come on now. Heck, this didn't start in the 1950s. Remember, you go back to the 20s and 30s, to the late 1800s, the early 1900s, and you had white boys and girls standing with their parents, looking up at the dangling black body. Whether it was in the deep south here in the U.S. or anywhere else in the U.S. And don't just tell me it was down only in the south. There were lynchings happening here in California. There were lynchings happening in New York. There were lynchings happening all over the country of black people. So when you think about the fact that in the 1920s and 30s and the 40s and 50s, you had pictures, video, well, pictures certainly, of white families, with their kids, families, pointing up and smiling with black bodies swinging from the trees, lynched, mutilated, burnt at the stake, dismembered. And that's where this 12-year-old boy comes from. I don't care that he's in Solihull in England, in the Midlands, in the West Midlands. I could care less. That is where the hatred comes from. That's where that 12-year-old boy comes from. He would have been right at home. In the South, in the North, in the East or West, or in the Midwest of the United States of America. He would have been pointing up at those black bodies. I mean, he invoked the Klan. in his racist imagery that he sent to the Crystal Palace footballer Wilfried Zaha. That's what he did. He is completely in line with that tradition of racist white people who feel the need to flaunt their racism. And all of these white women who do this now, they're attacking Asians, they're attacking black people, they're attacking Latinx, they're in a supermarket complaining, attacking Latinas, calling the cops on black girls in San Francisco who are 6 years old, 6-year-old black girl selling water in front of her stoop. And you got some white woman who wants to police the actions and police a black body, a black person. That's what she wants to do. You've got here in San Francisco again, a white woman calling the police on a Filipino brother. I've talked about him, James Juanillo, a good man. I talked about this the other day. If he was writing MAGA on his own property, would they have called the cops? Would she have called the cops? She being Lisa Alexander, who is making a complete ass of herself, by the way. Centering herself ahead of the larger picture and ahead of a whole race of people. Writing letters to the board of supervisors here in San Francisco. Oh, I'm offended that you mentioned my name in conjunction with this Karen Act that you're proposing. Oh, I'm offended. Yeah, but you're not offended by your racism and your racist attitudes. You want to sit down for a cup of coffee with my man James Juanillo. That's what you want to do. A cup of coffee. Oh, show me how not to be racist. Oh, show me. Show me. Tell me, please. You have to do that yourself. He doesn't have to show you a damn thing. None of us do. And if reading some books, as good as that is not enough. And Lord knows, I have recommended a number of books. But reading books is the beginning, not the end. This isn't just about reading. This is about action. Reading is a passive activity. It's active in a real sense, but it's also very passive. You have to act. You have to act. You have to train yourself, unlearn, reject, point out. Anyone around you who says these racist things, you have to be the one to stand up and say, no, that's racist and I'm not going to have that from you. And you have to be, as a white person, I think, prepared to lose friendships over this. You have to. If you claim to be an anti-racist, and Lisa Alexander who writes, oh, I'm not racist, that's not good enough. You have to be an anti-racist. And I think a lot of white people are understanding that that is their mission now. This 12-year-old boy hasn't understood that. And I bet you his parents have not understood it either. These social media companies haven't understood that. Nor have these boardrooms, nor have these media rooms. They're still lily white. There's no use in saying Black Lives Matter if your boards are still 95% white, if not more. This 12-year-old boy was not acting in isolation. Not by a long shot. He had a lot of help. A lot of help. When I return, I think some very wise words from a cricketer of the past. It doesn't matter if you don't like cricket. I think what he has to say punctuates a lot of the points that I've been making here in this episode. That's coming up in just a moment.
How did you feel speaking down the barrel of a camera about this subject?
Well, I obviously didn't get as emotional as Ebony because, as I said in that video, I didn't really experience a great deal of that as a young man growing up in Jamaica, perhaps because I wasn't in that society or mixing with people that would have shown me that racism. But what I want to expand on, though, Wardy, is what I said about education. Education is important unless we just want to continue living the life that we are living and continue just having demonstrations every now and again and a few people saying a few things. And when I say education, I mean going back in history. What people need to understand is that this thing stems from a long time ago, hundreds of years ago. The dehumanization of the black race is where it started. And people will tell you, oh, that's a long time ago, get over it. No, you don't get over things like that. And the society has not gotten over something like that. I'll skip all the gap between those long years ago and make one point and then go backward. That lady in the Central Park in New York, Amy Cooper, I think is her name. If she did not have in her DNA the thought process that she was white, this man is black. If I call a police officer, 9 times out of 10 he's going to be white. I'm going to be considered right immediately. The black guy will have to prove that he's not guilty. And by the time he proves that he's not guilty, he might be dead. She had that in her mind from day one. That is why she said and did what she did. How do you get rid of that in the society? By educating both sides, black and white. I hear people talking about brainwashing. I didn't quite understand as a young man what brainwashing meant. I now understand what brainwashing meant, what it means. We have been brainwashed, and not just black people. White people have been brainwashed in different ways. I go back many years. Think about religion. You and I are supposed to be Christians. I'm not really a very holy person, not a very religious person. But that's what we were taught. Look at Jesus Christ, the image that they give you of Jesus Christ. Pale skin, blonde hair, blue eyes. Where Jesus came from, who in that part of the world looks that way? But again, that's the brainwashing to show you this is what perfection is. This is what the image of perfection is. If you look at any plays of those days, Judas, who betrayed Jesus, he's a black man. Again, brainwashing people into think, oh, he's a black man. He's the bad man. Go through history, Wardy. These lights that are shining on us. You can tell me who invented the light bulb, right? Thomas Edison, right? Everybody knows Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Thomas Edison invented a light bulb with a paper filament. It burnt out in no time at all. Can you tell me who invented the filament that makes these lights shine throughout? Nobody knows, because he's a black man. It was not taught in schools. Louis Howard Latimer invented the carbon filament to allow lights to continuously shine. Who knows that? Everything should be taught. When you go back through the schooling as a young man, I remember my school days. I was never taught anything good about black people. And you cannot have a society that is brought up like that, both white and black, that only teach what's convenient to the teacher. History is written by the conqueror, not by those that are conquered. History is written by the people who do the harm, not by the people who get harmed. And we need to go back and teach both sides of history. And until we do that and educate the entire human race, this thing will not stop. They keep on telling me there's nothing called white privilege. Give me a break. I don't see any white people going into a store on Oxford Street and being followed. A black man walks in, somebody is following him everywhere he goes. That is basic white privilege. Whether that white person went in to rob the place or not, is not going to be thought of that way. And things like that have to change.
That was Michael Holding, the great, legendary cricketer of the West Indies team. And I remember watching Michael Holding play back in the day. I mean, that's, guess how old I am. I mean, but you heard those last 4 or 5 minutes. The truth of what he said is inescapable. But here's the other thing that I think looms very large. Where are the white voices speaking about the need to unlearn? I mean, there have been some. I'm not saying that there are none. But there needs to be a whole lot more. I've seen over the last few months Jane Fonda talking about this, talking about how she's educating herself and urging people that she knows. I've seen that. She was on CNN a couple of months ago, I think, back in May or June, talking about this with Don Lemon. I think you can go find that on YouTube. I'm sure you can find it. But my point is, where are white celebrities at large, but not even white celebrities? Where are white people at large on this? Yes, there are people on Twitter that I know and follow, and they follow me, who some of whom I think are committed to doing something and have raised a lot of awareness and are calling out racist people and challenging other white people online, and I dare say probably doing it in their daily lives as well. But having a few white people do this is not enough. For it is white people who will ultimately be able to have a large say in stopping all this behavior. Because let's be honest, there are a sizable number of white people out there who will not listen to black people, still. Some will, but most, in my view, will not. And even the words that you just heard from Michael Holding, one of the greats of cricket in the West Indies, one of the greats, he was speaking there on Sky Sports in the UK. And there's lots of other great video of him. And that's audio that you obviously just heard, but there's some great video of him additional to what you just heard there, of him talking about racism and dealing with that and his family and all kinds of things. And all of what he said has influenced actually other people who are on the West Indies cricket team today, such as the captain, Jason Holder. But a 66-year-old man named Michael Holding, a legend of cricket, should not have to be the one to be leading the way in addressing racism and educating people. There are great people out here like Jane Elliott, a white woman in her, well, I don't even want to say her age, but she doesn't mind saying it herself. She is an octogenarian. And she has been teaching and educating people for decades. I mean, over 50 years now. Over 50 years. And here we are still. And we still have the same majority, overwhelmingly white boardrooms, overwhelmingly white corporations and hierarchical structures, and a system that is built on whiteness and oppression, if I can say that correctly without stumbling over my words, oppression of black people, of brown people. That's what the system's based on. So if you have a system that is built on oppressing black and brown people, what do you have when that oppression stops? Exactly. whole lot of nothing. Exactly. A whole lot of nothing. When you hear black people, and this is for the white people that this applies to who may be listening to this, when you hear black people like Michael Holding or any other black person, no matter whether they're famous or not, saying that this racism has got to end, saying that this is the kind of oppression, this is the oppression that we're facing every day. We're followed around stores. We're absolutely tormented. We aren't getting jobs. We are being discriminated against, even though our qualifications are much better than the other applicants, the white applicants. We are absolutely being discriminated against. We're facing racism every day. The casual stuff, that's the worst kind. Oh, do you really you live here? Really? Oh, you're an attorney? Really? That kind of stuff is the worst stuff, in my view. I get that all the time. Why would you live here? Why shouldn't I live here? Are you an attorney? You really? Yes, really. If you're black, you get that every day. You get followed in a store. You get told, oh no, that's the discount area. That's the discount area. Maybe you can go there. That's what you get told every day. It doesn't matter what clothes you're wearing. That's another thing that I get some white people telling me. Oh, well, what were they wearing? And what the hell difference does that make? Well, I just wanted to know. What difference does that make, what they were wearing? How many white people wear hoodies? How many white people have I seen with their caps on backwards, especially these white males, with their caps on backwards? How many white males have I seen wearing hoodies and the hood on their head, and the police don't look at them? No one looks at them, not once. Not once. No one crosses over the street. No white woman clutches her handbag, crosses the street over to the other side of the road. That doesn't happen. Not when a white man is walking with a hoodie down the street, day or night. It's never happened, at least not as far as I can see. If you're a white female, have you crossed over the street when you've seen a white man in a hoodie or a white man with his cap on backwards? Have you crossed over the road? Were you living in fear? If you saw a white man in a hoodie and you are walking and you've just got out your car, do you make the emphasis to kick on your car lock to make it known that you've locked your car door because some white man in a hoodie, or a white man, period, doesn't matter if he's got a hoodie on or not, when he walks by your car, do you lock your doors in your car? If you see a white man walking in the middle of the street or walking down, do you lock? Are you instantly locking your car doors? That's the kind of stuff. That's the stuff every day that we face as black people. Every day. That kind of stuff. Averting your eyes, walking across the street. Clutching your handbag. And then you've got 12-year-old boys. It doesn't matter that Wilfried Zaha is a Premier League player in the football world, in English football. It doesn't matter. These messages get sent to us every day. That's the larger issue as well, isn't it? When are those white people that I'm speaking about going to take responsibility as James Baldwin has many times asked before he passed away, when are white people going to take responsibility? That's my point. For this kind of behavior that they are exhibiting. And as James Baldwin also said, and I'm paraphrasing him, that is the key answer. And the answer to that question determines the fate of the country called the United States of America, and in fact, the fate of the world. And what white voters do this November, quite frankly, also will determine that as far as the United States is concerned. Something to ponder. Thank you for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.